Welcome back to Capital Tonight. I'm Tim Boehm. Tonight we're talking with Tariq, Bokhari, and Larken Egleston of the Southern Group about the big issues in Charlotte right now. And one issue that is the issue that just keeps on giving in the Charlotte region, and that is I-77 and toll roads. For those that don't know, in the northern end of the county and beyond, they put toll roads in. It's still a politically divisive issue. Some believe that Pat McCrory lost the governor's race partially because of this. So it's always fascinating. And Larken, it's kind of kept bubbling to the surface again, right?
Yeah, there's new plans now that show like elevated roadways, and even just if you take away the toll piece of this, and there are some material differences between this and the northern toll lanes on I-77, and we've got new lanes about to open on 485 down in South Charlotte and South Mecklenburg. But one of the big pieces of this one is this is going to be going right through the center city and right through historically black communities, some of which are the exact same historically black communities that were divided when Highway 16 was built. When 277 was built. And so we've seen this movie before, and we've seen the negative implications and repercussions from it. There are communities going, why in the world would we do this again? And so I think one of the ways they looked at doing this initially was to widen I-77, which would have had really adverse impacts to historic cemeteries, to some of the historic communities where people still reside adjacent I-77. And then now they've looked at, okay, well, what if we went vertical? Maybe that has less impacts in those ways. But there's other negative impacts from that. And so I think there are people who just say, we don't like any of these options. And then it begs the question is, if NCDOT has made this decision, is it just sort of working around the edges to decide what it looks like, but otherwise maybe a foregone conclusion? I'm not certain, but there's certainly a lot of community outrage around it right now.
Well, and for folks that don't know, typically toll roads are done because otherwise those roads wouldn't be completed for significantly longer, down the road. The Triangle knows that well too, with 540 that's being constructed around the Raleigh area. Tariq, you sent me the video. Malcolm Graham at Town Hall. I mean, that just shows how volatile this issue is.
Yeah, I mean, there's toll roads, affordable housing, and data centers. And if you're involved in any of those industries, you better buckle up because there's going to be significant community opposition to all of it. I think we saw it in that town hall that Councilmember Graham had, where the city council doesn't have as much of the direct kind of purview on this topic as some of the other parties. But he decided to host a town hall, and some anger popped up of folks who really felt like their voice wasn't being heard. I have always kind of been of the mindset where I don't love toll roads. I have that view of like, I don't appreciate everything that's prioritized in the budgets that take my tax dollars, and this should be a priority alongside safety and other things. You should find ways to fund these things, not say it can't be funded forever unless we do something like this. But at the same time, especially in my time in DC with the FTA, we sat around different credit committees and looked at these options, and financially speaking, it's a tool, it's a mechanism that is creative, and it's going to get things done that wouldn't otherwise. So it's this real catch-22, and that's why negotiations are really important with the neighborhoods. This is not going to go away quietly, and there will be ramifications one way or another, depending on how this is handled.
And if people want a really wonky homework assignment and want to learn more about thinking about free lanes versus toll lanes, I'd encourage people to look up the concept of induced demand as it relates to interstate highways. Free lanes not only won't get built for a long time if that's the route we wanted to go, but they won't fix the problem for very long either. So this is why it's all the more important that Charlotte voters passed the transportation tax initiative last year, and we've got a new and strengthened and increased in size transportation system forthcoming, because we're just never going to pave our way out of congestion here.
So if you're looking for a date night idea this Valentine's Day,
read about the induced demand.
Induced demand. Grab a glass of Chardonnay, perhaps.
Well, Tariq, from your talk, I mean, Charlotte folks are thinking about Charlotte, but this gets lumped in. There's a lot of statewide decisions. I mean, if you don't do one thing, or if you do one thing, something else is getting, not getting something. Like these are not like just easy decisions. It's either this or that. There's other things that get impacted, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a systemic issue across a whole bunch of things where you can solve 6 problems and you leave one unaddressed and you have a problem there. And so like, the big macro problem I have now that I've kind of evolved to understand the use of it while not still loving it is I still feel like we are at a precipice moment of technology that's going to potentially change how people move. And if autonomous vehicles and the IoT and all this stuff going on right now that's going to change an industry like we've seen over the last 20 years and the 20 years before that, that just totally changes how people move and get around, that requires a different set of infrastructure. And making long-term bets, whether it's rail or these kinds of expansion, without thinking where the puck is going to be, it's concerning.
Yeah, but Larken, we don't know what that technology will look like, right? I mean, I used to ask you, Tariq, too. So we don't know how to build roads now that would be usable for that necessarily. That's the kind of tough decision making we're facing.
I mean, there should certainly be some of the subject matter experts that are working on things like this considering those things, but we also can't wait because there's always going to be the next thing that's coming. And if we wait to figure out what it is before we start doing anything, I do think Tariq's right that this is going to look a lot different 20 years, 30 years from now, maybe sooner. But we've got a problem to solve now, and we've got to start doing something about it.